tonight. Conservation officers are called in after a bear is spotted near downtown Regina. Riders training camp officially kicks off. And young aviation lovers let their dreams lift off in Saskatoon.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Monday, May 12th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. I'm Ethan Williams. Thank you for joining us. Residents near downtown Regina awoke to first responders and conservation officers on their street early Monday. A bear had made its way into town and came close to houses and a nearby school. Ashwarya Duda has our top story.
We've heard of deer, coyotes, even the odd moose in city limits every now and then. But Monday morning, a bear was spotted in a tree just east of downtown Regina. Not in the woods, not in the park, on a residential street near Thompson School. Regina Police and the fire department were quick to respond, along with conservation officers. Sergeant James McLeod was on the scene and says they decided to tranquilize the cinnamon-colored black bear. The plan was to relocate the animal to the Qu'Appelle Valley.
Just due to the bear being kind of in the heart of the city, our conservation officer's options were fairly limited. Public safety is number one, and what we had was, an adult black bear.
McLeod says the bear was about 175 pounds. After being shot with a tranquilizer dart, it fell from a tall tree.
There are times where things don't go as planned. And in this instance, yes, upon the bear being chemically immobilized, unfortunately, it did fall from the tree through that process and sustained internal injuries. And at that point, the humane thing to do was to euthanize the bear.
McLeod says it's surprising to see an adult bear so close to downtown. It was first spotted on Ring Road, then in the 2500 block of Wallace Street, and finally around Victoria Avenue and Montreal Street, where it climbed a tree. Saskatchewan is black bear country. They're usually found in our northern forests and in some isolated areas like the Qu'Appelle River Valley and Touchwood Hills. They generally avoid people. But the intelligent bears are motivated by food and will seek out human or pet food, household waste, and bird seed.
This time of year is a hard time for bears. They're out of their dens. They're hungry because they haven't eaten since before hibernation. But right now, things are only just starting to green up. There's no berries.
Sergeant McLeod says their intent was to relocate the bear in a safe way, but the end result is not what officers were hoping for. Ashwarya Duda, CBC News, Saskatoon.
The NDP is demanding the province apologize after a Crown corporation nearly hijacked the construction of a second Costco in Regina. It was revealed last week at Regina City Council that the global transportation hub just west of the city had been exploring the construction of the popular wholesaler on its land, and Costco had considered building at the GTH since the land there is cheaper. In order to lure the development back within city limits, City Council says it will pay out nearly $7 million. The NDP says the GTH is meant to be a dedicated transportation logistics park and is calling for the province to apologize.
We should not be seeing, one level of government trying to outcompete or outbid another level of government here. There's only one taxpayer. Regina residents shouldn't have to be on the hook and trying to spend more money or have more of their tax dollars used because the province wants to compete with them.
David Merritt, the minister responsible for the GTH, did not apologize during question period Monday and didn't take questions from reporters. The CEO of the GTH says Costco approached them about the deal, but he agrees the GTH shouldn't be competing against the city for developments. And the NDP is also looking to get its private members' bill around separation referendums passed during this final week of the spring legislative sitting. The Keep Saskatchewan in Canada Act would increase the threshold for citizen petitions on such referendums. It would require signatures from 30% of eligible voters instead of 15%.
There's an opportunity here for the Premier and for the government to put this to rest. Today, have a free vote, stand up, all of your members, let them have a free vote, and say, look, we've got no interest in separatism. We think that's the exact wrong path to take right now.
In a statement, the Sask party government says it is not interested in holding a referendum on separation, but it says this bill would silence the voices of Saskatchewan people. Seeding is well underway on Saskatchewan farms, and farmers are now watching soil moisture levels and tariffs to see what this year's crop holds. At a news conference Monday, the province's Minister of Trade and Export Development says farmers want to see Chinese tariffs on Canadian canola products lifted, and that issue will only be made worse if the weather doesn't cooperate.
I would say the weather is the primary concern for producers. For about 140 days, the weather will be their primary concern, because ultimately if they don't have something in the bin, they don't have something to market.
Soil moisture levels are so far adequate in most of the province, but Kading says farmers need rain soon to get the crops growing. The province is also reminding the public to be patient if they encounter farmers moving equipment on the roads. Meanwhile, concerns continue over water levels in the South Saskatchewan River. Last week, we told you how Saskatoon's Prairie Lily riverboat is being docked indefinitely due to low water levels. The owner says sandbars have made sailing impossible, and he called on the Water Security Agency to release more water into the river from Lake Diefenbaker. The provincial NDP says the government ignored warnings from the Prairie Lily's owner last summer when he showed Water Security Agency officials the state of the river, and they say the effects go beyond a hit to the local economy.
There are fears that first responders won't have proper access with emergencies. The docks used by the fire department and RCMP are now buried in sand. In an emergency, that means help might not be available in time.
The provincial government did not respond to a request for comment. Saskatoon Fire says it does have a separate boat launch under the Broadway Bridge that crews can use for water rescues, but it also has smaller boats that work for lower water levels, and it can perform shore-based rescues as well. Highway 20 near Craven has reopened after back-to-back train derailments. The first happened near the community on Sunday when 4 grain cars and a locomotive derailed. The second incident happened Monday in the same area. Police say no dangerous goods were spilled and no injuries have been reported. It's not yet known how many cars were involved or what they were carrying. Detours had been in place while officials worked on the scene. The cause of both incidents is under investigation. Prime Minister Mark Carney will unveil his new cabinet on Tuesday. Liberal Party sources tell CBC News he is considering a 2-tier cabinet. It would include a core group of senior ministers and a secondary group of ministers of state. The core group would meet more frequently and deal with key government issues, including trade negotiations with the Trump White House. CBC News will have special coverage of the swearing-in beginning at 7:30 a.m. local time Tuesday, led by CBC News chief political correspondent Rosemary Barton. You can watch on CBC News Network or anywhere you stream CBC News. Saskatchewan Roughriders training camp is now underway, getting started on Sunday in Saskatoon. It signifies the unofficial start to the CFL season, as the team is just under a couple of weeks away from its first preseason matchup. Chris Edwards reports.
Day 2 of the Saskatchewan Roughriders training camp is now over, and with players looking for a spot on the finalized roster, there's a lot to get right before the season officially begins. Head coach Corey Mace says he's impressed with what he's seen so far. He thinks his team is ready to learn from each other.
You know, inevitably, adversity is going to hit you in a football season. It's not looking to the left and the right and kind of guessing at how everybody's going to respond. Everybody knows it, and the young bucks have already came in and they've assimilated to the culture that we have here. So with continuity, I think just having that experience and trust in one another.
That trust is being extended to several new faces, including first-round draft pick Ali Saad. The defensive lineman arrived at training camp on Monday. Before that, he completed rookie camp with the San Francisco 49ers. He spent Monday adapting to the Canadian rules of the game.
I understood most of it. Took time to get used to the first team period. Wasn't at 100. After that, kind of got used to it. The guys were out there helping me out, of course. Were telling me what's wrong, what's right, and they were correcting me mid-rep as well and before the rep, which was great.
While he might still be getting used to things, Saad says he brings a lot of strength to the team.
I'm a great motivator. I like to lead by example, so I love watching film. I love learning new things. Coming here, I think my aggressiveness and physicality is something that I can bring to the table for sure. That will change the game, especially like I'm a guy that can move all around in different positions and stuff, and I feel like I could be a huge impact here for sure.
Training camp in Saskatoon runs until the Riders head to Winnipeg for their first preseason game on May 24th. The Green and White will open their regular season at home against the Ottawa Red Blacks on June 5th. Chris Edwards, CBC News, Regina.
Well, we told you a little bit earlier about those low water levels on the South Saskatchewan River. Here's a closer look at some of those now. And even though the water levels are a bit low, the river valley, still a nice place to take a walk, especially when we're having weather like this. And we are in for some rainier and some cooler days, though, ahead a little bit later in the week. But as you've been hearing, it is a good thing that those days are coming. We definitely need the rain, especially as those crops are getting in the ground. Weather specialist Riley Lachuk has all the details in your full forecast, and he will bring that to you after the break. Stay with us. U.S. and Chinese officials say they've made major progress toward a trade deal. Both countries are agreeing to take a big step back from their escalating tariff war. Aaron Collins has the details from Washington.
The U.S. and China, in the midst of a trade war, declared a truce of sorts over the weekend. Both countries agreeing to reduce tariffs for 90 days while they work on a deal. After a weekend of trade talk, Chinese and American officials moving. China agreeing to slash their tariffs from 125% to just 10%. The U.S. will drop theirs from 145% to 30%.
The consensus from both delegations this weekend is neither side wants a decoupling. And what had occurred with these very high tariffs, as Ambassador Greer said, was the equivalent of an embargo, and neither side wants that.
It's the news markets were waiting for. The Dow Jones and NASDAQ surging. The U.S. president hoping the de-escalation, the start of something bigger.
But the biggest thing to me is the opening up. I think it would be fantastic for our businesses if we could go in and compete with China.
That won't be easy and could come with a cost. Shipments to the U.S. from China are down more than 20% year over year. Bad news for the Chinese economy, but not good for American consumers either.
We have right now no ships leaving China for the West Coast. That's the first time we've seen that since the COVID pandemic. We are hearing retailers talk about empty store shelves within weeks.
Facing potential shortages and rising prices, the U.S. may need a deal as much as China, an opportunity for other countries like Canada.
With the U.S. key retail markets continuing to suffer, that may create additional leverage for Canada on which to rely in future negotiations to try and settle this tariff issue once and for all with the United States.
Canada and the U.S. could have an opportunity to make progress on a deal soon. The two countries will take part in G7 meetings in Alberta next month. This is the second time in recent days the U.S. has scaled back its global tariffs. Last week, tariffs on steel and aluminum from the U.K. were dropped as part of a framework for a trade deal with that country. Perhaps signs of de-escalation in this global trade war. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Washington.
Well, a stormy Monday for some of us in the province. If you're watching us live here at about 6:15 Monday evening, we have a tornado warning in effect for the RM of Sliding Hills. That's just northeast of Yorkton. A storm possibly producing a tornado moving off to the northeast toward Kamsack. And with all the details on our forecast now, here's weather specialist Riley Lachuk.
Well, Ethan, another hot day across south and central parts of the province as we've gotten throughout the day. Here's a look at some of our afternoon temperatures. 31s in Regina, Assiniboia, Weyburn, Broadview, 32 in Estevan. I remind you that normal daytime highs for this time of the year, somewhere around 18, 19 degrees. So well above seasonal for this time of the year. A couple records broken yesterday. Rockland, Cornack beating records dating back several decades. So yes, another day of hot temperatures. We have one more of these to come. For some of us, this is all thanks to this upper ridge that is built in the jet stream and really funneling some of this very hot air in from the southern United States. And this is a pattern that will start to break down as we get through the next couple of days across the province. Even as we get into the day on Tuesday, we start to see that jet stream shifting a little bit further to the east. That is going to allow temperatures to cool down and actually introduce a little bit more instability in the form of rainfall and some much needed rain for some as we get toward the end of the week. By the time we get to the weekend, we're actually falling below seasonal for this time of the year. So I know we're going into May long weekend on a bit of a chillier note for some of us as we get toward the end of the week here. But there is another ridge, according to this forecast modeling at least, starting to build as we get toward the end of the weekend that will help stabilize things a little bit. Along the jet stream, along that ridge, we have seen a little bit of volatility starting to pop up as we've gotten through the afternoon hours here, particularly north and east of Regina. Some severe thunderstorm watches, some warnings in place as well through the late afternoon as we've seen some of these thunderstorms pop up a little bit here. So just keep that in mind that with the heat and the stickiness comes some potentially severe weather as we get through the overnight hours into Tuesday morning. We'll start with a mix of sun and clouds. A chance, though, early in the morning of seeing maybe a few more showers through Regina into parts of southwestern Saskatchewan as we get through the morning. And then we're back into a mix of sun and clouds as we get through the rest of the day. Tuesday, we'll introduce a little bit more cloud cover into Wednesday, and then you can see the beginnings of that next system starting to make its way up that will give a little bit more rain to southern sections as we get through the next couple of days here. In terms of accumulation, really a couple millimeters at best, but if you get stuck in one of these thunderstorms, maybe you pick up a little bit more in the way of rainfall, a little bit more coming to northern sections as we get through the next couple of days. So 22 tomorrow, still above seasonal, 13, so you can see that drop in temperatures as that ridge shifts a little bit further to the east as we get toward the end of the week. 14s and 15s through the long weekend for Regina and 16 degrees on the way for Monday. For Saskatoon, 19, a bit of a breezy one on the way for Tuesday. 17, good chance we'll see maybe a few showers as we get through Thursday. And temperatures, Ethan, stabilizing toward the long weekend around 16, 17 degrees.
All right. Thank you, Riley. A BC man is sharing his story to serve as a warning to anyone looking to buy a used vehicle. He unknowingly purchased a car with misleading mileage. Erica Johnson with our Go Public team looks into the deceptive practice of odometer fraud.
So this is the car?
Yeah.
Steve Andrews needed a car for his growing family, landed on this 2012 Subaru. A good price, and the mileage was right, about 98K.
They said it was in very good condition, that there was no real problems or issues with it.
But as soon as the car left this dealership, it started to shake. Andrews brought it to a mechanic who helped him locate a record showing that back in 2020, the mileage was already thousands higher than advertised. But it gets worse. Go Public tracked down the previous owner who sold that Subaru just a few months ago.
What was the mileage on the vehicle when you sold it?
She told us the odometer was at about 150,000. So who rolled it back? More than 50,000 clicks.
Yeah, I was definitely angry.
Looks like a classic case of odometer fraud, which no one tracks in Canada. But recent tariffs on new vehicles are expected to drive up demand for used ones. And it's not that hard to find out how to fiddle with an odometer. This expert shows how even modern digital odometers can be tweaked using a handheld programmer widely sold online.
It is a click of a button and entering in a number. You don't have to have any know-how. You just need to know how to select a vehicle on a screen.
In seconds, he takes years off the vehicle. Andrews bought the car from this dealership, which told us the mileage was low when they agreed to sell it on consignment from this dealership, which also said the mileage was low when they bought it from the private seller. Claimed they'd done a full investigation, but wouldn't say what they found. This car expert says the buck stops at the dealership selling the car.
Dealerships do have to go upstream and find the source of where this all began, who is responsible, because ultimately they will be held accountable.
Steve Andrews did get a refund and filed a complaint with BC's regulator for car dealerships. He also bought a used car for his family from a different dealership. He hopes his story warns others about a potentially costly, deceptive practice he was lucky to catch. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Backhand flip Shanks, shot.
And with that, the Saskatchewan Rush are off to the National Lacrosse League Championship Final, defeating Halifax 10-9 in overtime Saturday. They now face the two-time defending league champion Buffalo Bandits in a best-of-3 series beginning Friday. It's the first time the Rush have been in the NLL Final since 2018. We're back after the break. Well, some girls in Saskatoon got a chance to see their aviation dreams soar this weekend. They took part in the second annual Girls Take Flight event at the Saskatoon International Airport on Saturday. The event aims to empower the next generation of female aviators. Girls between the ages of 8 and 18 were able to experience free flights, talk with real pilots, and have a look around some of the aircraft on site. One aspiring pilot says it's important to have an event exclusively for girls.
Most of the people I talk to about aviation or pilots that I've met are men, and I haven't actually met any female pilots quite yet, so I'm really excited about that to find out in this event.
There's a global pilot shortage. It's a very kind of lucrative, bright future for pilots, for piloting. The world needs pilots, and don't let anyone tell you can't. Find a way to do it, whether it's loans or whatever you need financially to do it. But it's a wonderful career. You're outside. You're not behind a desk, if that's sort of the type of work you'd like. It's an absolutely amazing industry. I'm so excited to be in it.
The event also included a barbecue and an indoor trade show aimed at networking with up-and-coming pilots.
Well, a mix of some cloud cover, some clear breaks as we get through overnight into Tuesday morning. Good viewing for some of us, at least, of the full moon as we get through the night tonight, the flower moon. Particularly the further north you go, I think the better chance you have seen that. Some cloud cover hanging around south and central as we get into the morning hours on Tuesday. 11 in Regina, 10 in Saskatoon, Prince Albert looking at 9 degrees. A fairly widespread chance of some showers, maybe some thunderstorms overnight. South End at 6. +1 overnight in Stony Rapids, so pretty wide spread of temperatures, and this is why I say you might not get the best view of that full moon into Tuesday morning. Some showers still pushing off into Manitoba as we get into the morning hours, and then temperatures back into the double digits for most of us as we get into the day. 17 in the Losh tomorrow afternoon. Mix of sun and clouds tomorrow across the south, looking at temperatures rebounding into the afternoon, and Ethan, a lot more seasonal by the afternoon.
Okay, thanks, Riley. And just before 6:30 on Monday here, a tornado warning remaining in effect for the Kamsack area, moving off to the northeast. So just a heads up for you folks there to seek shelter. Tornado warning for Kamsack. That is it for us. For more news anytime, you can always head to our website, cbc.ca/sask, or subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel, or download the CBC News app on your smartphone or tablet. Thanks so much for watching.